Good morning, people. My name is Drayden, and today I will be posting my very first makeup tutorial on YouTube. As you might have guessed from the title, I'm gonna do my full base, not full face, full base with only one brush. I might slap on a quick smoky eye in the end. We'll see about that, but today is gonna be all about skin, how to look fresh, how to look natural, and how to not cake it on for once. So what I like to do to start is prime the face. I've already moisturized, so I'm using the Bodyography Hydrating Primer. I use about 2 pumps of this. The reason I like this is it creates a slip on the face, which makes it much easier to blend out all your products. And if you have any dry patches, it prevents your foundation from sticking to them and grabbing onto them. So we're gonna put this all over the face. And don't forget the neck, because I do have some texture from shaving and irritation and stuff like that. So, during this whole tutorial, I will only be using this brush to do my full face. So, I'm going to start by color correcting. I'm taking an orange color corrector from NYX. It is a cream product. I love to work with cream products because they tend to blend much better into the skin than any powders. And you just want to put this on the areas that are slightly blue. It should be a light hue of orange. Color correctors are not meant to make an orange spot that you therefore have to cover up with concealer. There. This is all you need, people. You don't need to layer on a crap ton of product. What we're going to do then is use one of my favorite products, which is just any HD powder you can find. I happen to use the one of NYX, same brush. And if you haven't loaded up your brush with too much product, you can perfectly go into the powder and do a light layer of HD powder just over where you just color corrected. This will stop your concealer, which is following, to mix in with the color corrector so you don't get the orange hue all over your concealer. So, next step, concealer. You only need the tiniest bits. I'm using a liquid concealer from Bodyography. That is all you need, people. You don't need to pile on the product. I'm going to take light dabs and just layer that right over where we put the corrector. And most concealers will cover up the dark circles if you've color corrected them. See, that already looks a lot more smooth. You might also notice the color is quite significantly darker than my actual skin tone. That's because it's yellow and it will help neutralize the blue undertones that lay under my eyes on top of the corrector that I have already placed. Now remember, thin layers, people. I use the rest of the concealer to hide any redness. Anything I do, I also do on the other side, and some redness that I acquired during shaving because I'm a man. So that is concealer done. I do have a little friend over here. I don't mind it. You can hide it, but little blemishes are what makes us human, people. Anything I do on one side, I do on the other side, just to balance it out and to make sure I don't have any color difference. Now, since it's not a problem that our concealer might blend in with our foundation, because they're similar in shade, I'm not going to powder this. Too much layers of powder will make your foundation look not as natural as you might want. I'm going in with the NYX Bear With Me in the shade, the lightest one, because I am white as paper This is a tinted skin veil, as the bottle describes. You don't need any more than this. We're going for a light, natural look today. And again, you want to pick up tiny bits. And we're going to start from the center and brush that out with this same fluffy brush. And you might notice your skin tone smoothing out a little bit. I'm going to take that over the eye to cancel out any veins you might have. Give that smooth and awake look. As well on the forehead, we start from the center and blend out. And as you might see, there isn't a huge difference, but there's redness over here, redness around my nose. We've got our little friend over here, and here it's a lot smoother. You don't see the redness on my cheeks, which there is nothing wrong with, by the way. And it looks just overall a lot smoother. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you don't need a crap ton of coverage just to look smooth. Take it over the eye. I like to dab under the eye. With the dabbing motion, you get a tad bit more coverage, and in the center of the face is where I like my coverage the most. There is also where it is least noticeable, because the product doesn't have to blend in, for example, with your beard line or your hairline. That might be receding. So then we're going to do the neck, little circular motions. We're not going to dab here, because we need this to blend down flawlessly. I like to take my foundation quite far down because I do have quite defined block shadow. Also, I put a concealer where I have the redness, so I like everything to blend nice and smooth. There, now we have evened out our complexion. We're gonna take the last dab and put some on the ears, just so we have no color difference in our faces. So now that we have a smooth canvas to work with, we're not gonna just pile on the product. What we're gonna do is work further with cream products. I'm gonna use these velvet sticks by Kiko. The reason I like them is they're creamy, they're blendable, yet they still dry down. So you don't need a ton of powder to set them. Creams will always look more natural. This is a very bright color. If you are white as paper like me, don't be afraid to go for a color like this. It will really brighten up your face. People say, but oh, I'm red on the cheeks. Well, it's very natural to have redness in your face. There's nothing wrong with it. As you see, I like to take it up in the crease. And especially in winter, even though we're leaning on to summer, I like to put a tiny dab on the nose because people tend to get red there, especially when it's cold, and it makes it look all the more natural. So don't be afraid of the redness that you might see in your face, because it's very normal that it is there, and it gives color to your face and makes it look all the more lifelike. There we go, see if it is even out. And now you can see there's just a tad bit more structure in the face. It's not so flat. If you want, you can take a little bit up to the forehead, but you absolutely don't need to do that. So next step is highlighter. Again, I'm going for a cream highlighter, because they look all the more natural than any powder products. So what I like to do is I just dab my products. I'm using the Jelly Highlighter by NYX. I'm using a blue shade. If you, again, are very fair like I am, blue is a tone that can make you look dewy, fresh, without making you look ashy or washed out. Just a tad bit on the forehead. See, that gives just a nice little sheen. It isn't overpowering. I'm gonna do a tad bit down the nose, not too much. And something I really like to do is the collarbone. If you're wearing something that exposes your collarbone. There we go. Now we already have quite a fresh face. So if you want to, you can layer on just a tad bit more blush, as the highlighter might have taken away any of the blush you might have placed before. Still using the same brush, still using product very sparingly. There's no need to overdo it. We're going very natural today. And since my cheeks are quite on the pink side, I am going to choose to drag it up the forehead just a tiny, tiny bit to balance out my full face. There we go, coming up. Now, this is complexion pretty much done. This is very fresh, I'm very fair. So what are we gonna do now? I'm gonna layer on a tad bit of powder highlighter. So I'm going to use this one by Catrice. And should your brush be too wet because you went in just a tad bit heavy with product, just rub it on your wrist until it becomes a tad bit drier. I'm just gonna lightly tap it, turn the brush around, step off the excess from the forehead, lightly swoop. You might say, you have not set the face. No, I haven't, but if you use your products sparingly, there is no need to set your face directly. And you can perfectly layer sheer powders on top of any cream if you do not use it too heavily. It will not crack, it will not crease. And there we go, and that glow is just a tad bit intensified. I'm going to do the same on my collarbones, which I like so much. There we go, and now we've got pretty fresh face. What we can do now is still take that same brush, rub off anything you don't want there on your wrist, and I'm going to take my HD powder, and now is the moment we are going to set everything that hasn't set yet. Yes, foundation dries, as does concealer, so if you give it the time, it will dry down, and you don't need to use a crap ton of powder just to set your makeup. Use HD powder sparingly because it might give some flashback. Also, the more powder you use, the more texture you might emphasize. So use this sparingly. That's why I like to do it as one of the last steps and avoid powder where possible in my makeup routine. There we go. I'm going to set just a tad bit on the neck so it doesn't smudge on my clothes. There we go. We could leave the look here. Just fresh face doesn't need any more, but I like to do some brows. So what I'm going to do first is brush through my brows. Complexion is pretty much complete at this point. And then I'm going to take a felt tip pen by Kiko, and I'm just gonna lightly, I'm gonna take a mirror for this, I'm gonna lightly brush through my brows. And it isn't gonna be a huge difference, but there is gonna be some difference. They're gonna be a tad bit darker. I do tend to like myself a dark brow and just a tad bit more defined. I like to stroke up at the beginning of my brow. And it isn't much, but it did do something. This is a bit more arched. It is also a bit more defined. My eye looks just a tad bit more awake. Next step I like to do is brush up again. Then I'm going to take an eyebrow pencil. And I'm going to lightly zigzag through my brow, filling in the empty spaces. I'm not drawing individual hairs. I'm also not drawing any harsh lines whatsoever. And from now and then, just brush through them so you don't get any harsh lines. I like my arch to be quite pointy, so I like to overdo this just a tiny bit. There we go, and again you see that just gives a tad bit more definition. Then, last step to my brows is brow gel. Brow gel will set your brow, and then you will have a long-lasting brow day. Also, it gives just a tad bit more color and fullness to your brow and fills in any gaps you might have forgotten. I like to brush just forward to put on the hairs, straight up. And there we go, a voluminous brow that will last all day. Gonna do the other brow off camera and I will be. Next step is just the slightest bit of mascara that can pick up any powder that might have fallen to your lashes. So I'm just gonna make them black. I'm not trying to get any like massive volume. See, that's just a tad bit more definition. It's nothing fancy. Just like slightly graze the lashes. There you go. And the complexion is pretty much complete now. One more thing you can do, I am quite fair, I do quite like that. But if you like some bronzer, you can layer on the bronzer on your face, which I'm gonna do just the slightest bit, still using the same damn brush. And if you are fair like me, don't go for too dark of a bronzer. You wanna look for a bronzer that almost has like this deep caramel tone. And as you might see, I'm layering this on top of my cheekbones. I'm not really trying to contour with it, add any definition. Really, it's just adding warmth to the face, so I don't look like I spent all winter hiding in some hole. Spots that also get hit by the sun are the forehead. And you see, I'm just lightly grazing the forehead, which I'm doing with every single one of my products. You see here, I'm just lightly sunbaked, and here, it's not flat, but it's fair. Don't forget the neck, of course. The sun will hit the side and the back of your neck first, and then pass through your shoulders, because here is where your chin casts a shadow, so it doesn't really get tan, so you don't need to layer on the bronzer there. Although I do like to lightly take it in just so the line is blended. Don't forget the back of the neck. And there you see, this is a more bronzed complexion, even though I am quite fair. And this is a bit more flat, unbronzed, which is perfectly fine. And last, I like to take it right on the nose because that's where the sun also hits first and where you get burnt. So if you're applying bronzer, you should always think, if I would lay in the sun with my face, where does my face get burnt? Which is on top of the cheekbones, your forehead, your nose, collarbones, and your neck. If you want to, you can take just a tad bit more HD powder where you feel like your face isn't really set. I feel like that's my forehead, which I'm gonna do right now. And the rest of my face feels pretty set just here in the eye corners where things might tend to crease. And that is basically the face. That's all you need. Now, for the quick smoky eye, I promised I am gonna do just a very natural quick smoky eye with the Jeffree Star Thirsty palette, which is one of my favorite palettes, if I'm honest. It is easy to work with, and it's a palette I can use empty. You have your warm browns, you have your cool tones, and you have these little funky colors that you can use. So I'm gonna take the orangey shade Bitch from the palette, and I'm just gonna lightly swipe that through the crease. Nothing fancy. And that just gives a light peachy hue. And I'm not using a lot of product, by the way. You see I'm tapping the outside corners, pulling inwards, and then I'm blending through the crease. I am keeping my eyes open. Just following my natural lines, windshield wiper motions, holding the brush at the end will give you much more control and give you that hazy look, a really blended look. There we go. You see this reddish hue, which I quite like in summer. And then I'm gonna take a more ashy toned brown. I'm gonna go quite dark. I'm gonna go with Drizzle. Tap off the excess, again, start in the outer corner. I'm really gonna pull in this time and almost fill the entire lid, and then again, blend. That gives some depth to the eye. I'm gonna do that on the other side as well. And I'm just gonna layer that and keep pulling in just a tad bit further until the entire lid is covered. Then blend with my eyes open. And there you go. There you have this light smoky eye that is wearable for every day. And it doesn't take that much effort. If you want, you can take a cream shade above if you just think it might need a tad bit more blending, which I'm gonna do between my eyebrow and the first shade we put down. And I know I did eyeshadow after my mascara, but we are going for a very natural look, so I don't really mind. Although I do recommend doing your mascara after you are done with your eyeshadow. Now, a quick sweep underneath the eye of the orangey shade we just used. And that's a quick everyday smoky eye, heroin chic if you might call it. And that concludes it for this look. If there is anything you would like to see in the future, I'd be happy to do so. Otherwise, let me know if you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, did you try it at home? I'm Drayden Draconidae, and I'd be happy to see you in my next video.